The eviction notice landed against my chest at 8:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. It was bright pink, stamped with an official-looking seal, giving me exactly 72 hours to vacate the premises. The only problem was that I owned the house outright. I'd paid cash years earlier, no mortgage, no liens, just me, my black coffee, and the deed tucked safely in my filing cabinet. The woman who handed it to me was Brenda Cowich, the HOA president in her late 50s, blonde highlights locked in a perfect helmet, leopard print cardigan, screaming entitlement. She'd brought 2 hired security guards in polo shirts who flanked her like she was serving a felony warrant instead of harassing a homeowner. "This neighborhood has standards," she declared loudly enough for the entire street to hear, "and you clearly don't meet them." I didn't argue. I didn't even stand up from my porch chair. I just took another slow sip of coffee and smiled, because what Brenda didn't know, what she was about to discover in the most expensive, humiliating way possible, was going to dismantle her entire little empire. Let me back up and introduce myself properly. My name is Garrett. By 45, I owned 7 properties, which probably isn't what most people picture when they think of a former Marine turned part-time electrician. 12 years in the Corps, 2 combat deployments, more sand in my boots than memories I care to revisit, and a back injury that finally sent me home with a modest pension and a VA loan I decided to use smarter than most. In 2019, I bought my first place in Pinehurst Meadows, a quiet planned community just outside Charlotte, North Carolina. A modest 3-bedroom ranch, nothing flashy but mine. The day I closed, I stood alone in the empty living room and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Real peace. The kind that comes when you finally own a piece of ground no one can take away. I quickly discovered I loved the work of fixing things up. Ripping out old carpet, patching drywall, the clean bite of a drill, driving screws into fresh lumber. It was therapeutic in a way nothing else had been since I left the service. Weekends became Home Depot runs and late-night YouTube tutorials. I turned that starter house into something better than the builder ever intended. Then I noticed something else. Foreclosures, estate sales, and distressed properties right here in the same neighborhood selling at steep discounts, often 60 cents on the dollar. Over the next 4 years, I quietly picked up 6 more, all turned into clean, well-maintained rentals. I kept everything low profile, holding them through a generic LLC called Summit Holdings, NC. My tenants were solid people, a teacher, a nurse, a retired couple, a young family. Rent came in on time, properties stayed immaculate, and I stayed completely under the radar. Pinehurst Meadows was typical middle-class suburbia. About 140 homes built in the mid-2000s, mostly families and retirees. The HOA was mandatory. $85 a month for common area lawn care, a rarely used pool, and a clubhouse that always smelled faintly of old coffee. For years, the board was practically invisible. The previous president was a retired accountant who rubber-stamped everything and eventually retired to Florida. When he left in 2023, no one else wanted the job, except Brenda. She campaigned like it was a congressional race, promising to restore neighborhood pride and protect property values. She won with 19 votes on maybe 12% turnout. I first met her on a blistering July afternoon. I was replacing a rotted mailbox post when I heard heels clicking up my driveway, heels in 90-degree heat. Brenda materialized in a cloud of overpowering floral perfume, blonde highlights glinting, leopard cardigan somehow still on despite the temperature. She extended a manicured hand. "You must be Garrett. I'm Brenda Cowich, your new HOA president. Just wanted to introduce myself and make sure you're aware of our community standards." I shook her hand, firm, practiced, and asked what those standards were. "Oh, lawn height, trash can placement, that sort of thing. We've let things slide for far too long." Her eyes flicked to my 2015 Ford F-150 work truck. "That's not a commercial vehicle, is it?" I told her no, personal use only, 3/4 ton, no signage. She made a note on her actual clipboard, smiled without warmth, and clicked away, leaving behind fading perfume and the unmistakable scent of incoming trouble. 2 weeks later, the first violation notice arrived, certified mail. Commercial vehicle parked in residential driveway. Violation of CC and RS Section 4, 7B. 10 days to cure or face $50 per day in fines. I pulled out my copy of the covenants. I'd read them twice already and checked. Section 4, 7B banned commercial vehicles over 1 ton or with signage. My truck was 3/4 ton, plain blue, no logos. I took time-stamped photos, wrote a polite email citing the exact language, and attached everything. Her reply the next morning was 4 cold sentences. The board had reviewed my appeal, the violation stood, the HOA retained discretionary authority, and I had 8 days left. Discretionary authority. 2 words that should terrify every homeowner. I showed up to the next board meeting in August. The clubhouse AC was fighting a losing battle against the humidity. I expected a panel of 5 or 6 people. Instead, I found Brenda alone at a folding table, wooden gavel still bearing an Amazon price sticker. The other positions were vacant, and she was temporarily handling all duties. One woman, judge, jury, executioner. I presented my evidence in under 3 minutes. She didn't glance at it. Violation stands. Next item. Through the window, I could see my neighbor Craig Dietrich's identical class Chevy Silverado in his driveway. 0 violation. When I asked why, her smile turned razor sharp. Mr. Dietrich is a cooperative resident who understands community standards. That was the moment I believed her the first time. Over the next 6 weeks, the notices arrived like clockwork. Grass measured at 7 inches under the 3-inch limit. Garbage can visible too long. Front door painted the original builder bay from 2010 deemed unapproved. Wind chimes causing noise disturbance. Garden gnome, half an inch under the 12-inch maximum. Each carried a $50 per day fine threat. By October, the phantom total hit $850. My mail carrier started giving me sympathetic looks. I hired Consuela Verne, a sharp solo attorney who specialized in HOA disputes. She sent a cease and desist citing selective enforcement, lack of due process, and a clear harassment pattern. The HOA's downtown law firm shot back. Allegations meritless. Board reserves all rights. Further frivolous letters would face legal action. Then another violation arrived. My naturally weathered cedar mailbox post was faded and deteriorated. The fine counter jumped to $2,200. Consuela warned me, "You're legally correct on every point, but HOA litigation is slow and expensive. Sometimes compliance is the pragmatic move." But 12 years in the Marines had taught me one unbreakable rule. Bullies don't stop when you give in. They stop when you make them stop. I remembered North Carolina Statute 47F-3-118. Owners can demand HOA records with 10 days written notice. Refusal triggers penalties, even personal liability for board members. I sent the request certified mail, minutes, financials, contracts, violation logs for 3 years. Day 9, Brenda replied, "Financials under audit, unavailable for 60 to 90 days. Translation, hiding something. I posted in the neighborhood Facebook group. Anyone else getting unusual HOA violation notices lately? 47 comments in 3 hours. Iris, my 70-something neighbor, messaged privately. Brenda had cited her for weeds that were actually native pollinator plants she'd nurtured for 5 years. Another family got hit for a weekend basketball hoop. Meanwhile, Brenda's book club friends had RVs parked for months, dead lawns, sagging fences, no notices at all. At the hardware store, Iris whispered, hands shaking, that Brenda kept mentioning a buyer for her house. Her cousin ran a flipping company. That was when it crystallized. This wasn't random, petty tyranny. It was a scheme. Harass owners until they sell cheap, steer properties to connected buyers, collect kickbacks. Late November, the pink eviction notice arrived, the one she personally slapped against my chest at 8:47 that Tuesday. Notice to vacate due to unpaid fines totaling $1,200 constituting material breach. Vacate 428 Birchwood Drive within 72 hours or face forcible removal. It cited a non-existent statute section and carried a clip art county seal she'd probably downloaded. She stood in my driveway with her two rent-a-cops, hairspray halo glowing in the sun, diesel exhaust drifting from their idling van. "I'm sure this is just a misunderstanding," she said with fake sweetness. "But the lawyers will sort it out. You should start packing." I took another sip of coffee, let the silence stretch until her smile cracked. "I'll take it under advisement, Brenda. Have a nice day." I walked inside and shut the door. Through the window, I watched her stand there, mouth open, before she clicked back to her car in those absurd heels. "First call, Consuela." She laughed darkly when I sent the photo. "This is fraud. Impersonating legal authority. You could file criminal charges today." I told her not yet. I wanted to see how far she'd go. Second move. I posted the fake notice to the neighborhood Facebook group with one caption, "Anyone else getting these?" Comments exploded. 12 other families shared similar harassment stories. Brenda's allies called me a troublemaker hurting property values. Neutral residents started asking real questions. A retired electrician named Dell messaged privately, "Check the financials. Something's off. We used to have money for actual improvements. Now she says we're broke." I renewed my records request. Still nothing after 60 days, well past the legal deadline. North Carolina, HOAs file Form 1120. H with the IRS if they elect certain tax treatment. Those filings are public. I found Pinehurst Meadows' return in 20 minutes. Dues collected roughly $142,000 over 2 years. Landscaping expenses claimed $89,000. I called the actual landscaper listed on the checks. Their contract was $31,000 per year, same rate since 2020. That left $58,000 unaccounted for. After Consuela threatened a lawsuit, the audit suddenly finished. Every payment supposedly to Greene County Lawn Care had actually gone to Pinehurst Property Solutions, LLC, registered agent, Kenneth Cowich, Brenda's brother. $58,000 funneled to a shell company run by her family. Dell texted, "Emergency HOA meeting next week to raise dues 40% to cover legal fees defending against frivolous challenges." Translation me, I invited Dell, Iris, and the Newen family over. Spread the property records across my kitchen table. 6 deeds, all under Summit Holdings, NC LLC, including 349 Cypress Lane. Brenda's rental. Lease signed 14 months earlier, now month to month, 2 months delinquent. My property manager had been lenient, not knowing the full story. I called him. "Send the standard 10-day pay or quit notice to 349 Cypress. If no payment, file eviction." I didn't tell him who the tenant was. Business is business. The emergency meeting flyer arrived. Glossy, full-color, patriotic border. My truck photo caption, "Commercial eyesore, degrading property values," implying I was a faceless slum lord costing the HOA thousands. She'd spent HOA, or her own, money on a smear campaign. The neighborhood split. Most ignored it. Some parroted her lines. About 15%. The harassed ones organized a counter-effort with screenshots, testimonials, financial discrepancies. At the meeting, Brenda banged her gavel, confident in her navy blazer. She pushed the 40% dues increase. Dell raised a point of order. I connected my laptop to the TV and started the slides. Check copies to her brother's shell company, $58,000 discrepancy, registration documents. Gasps rippled. I moved to table the increase and demand an independent audit. Voice vote. Overwhelming ayes. Brenda tried to pivot, pointing at me. "Absentee investors who don't care about our community. We should ban rentals." I stayed calm. "I own 6 rentals here. All well-maintained. Tenants are teachers, nurses, families, 0 complaints." I pulled up the GIS map, highlighting my properties. Under bylaws, each gets 1 vote. That's 6 votes. Then the hammer. I'm calling a special recall election. Statute requires 10% petition, 14 signatures. I have 20. I handed her the stack. Color drained from her face. "You can't. It's the members' board, Brenda. And you violated your fiduciary duty." She grabbed her purse, knocked her chair over, and stormed out. The door slammed. Then applause started, slow at first, then half the room. But I still had one card left in my pocket. The recall election was set for January 15th. We ran a clean campaign, transparency, accountability. Brenda smeared harder. New flyers claiming my rentals were unvetted criminal drug dens. My tenants started getting fallout. A teacher's principal asked if she lived in a problem property. That crossed the line. January 8th, my property manager called. 3 months delinquent at 349 Cypress. $5.50 owed. I told him to file summary ejectment in magistrate court, but hold serving the summons until I said. January 14th, the night before the election, I couldn't sleep. This had stopped being about my truck months ago. It was about every bullied family, every elderly owner targeted for her flipping scheme. January 15th, for PMM. Exactly 2 hours before polls opened, a sheriff's deputy served Brenda at 349 Cypress Lane. Pure coincidence on timing, beautiful poetry in outcome. She opened the door, saw the uniform, read the summons, summary ejectment action, Plaintiff Summit Holdings NC LLC, my LLC. An hour later, she arrived at the clubhouse early, looking like she hadn't slept in days. By 6 p.m., the room held 89 residents, record turnout. WCNC cameras rolled in the back. Patricia, our independent monitor, called order, not Brenda. Voting took 30 minutes. While ballots are counted, Brenda demanded the floor. Before you elect these people, you deserve to know who you're really voting for. He's a slumlord, absentee investor. I stood. Brenda's partially right. I own rentals, 6 of them, all maintain good tenants. I held up her lease. She rents one of them. 349 Cypress Lane. Been my tenant since May 2023. Currently 3 months behind, $5.50. And as of 4 p.m. today, I held up the summons. She was served with a real eviction notice. Legal, proper, filed in magistrate court. Silence. Then gasps, shouts, nervous laughter. Brenda's face went purple. That's retaliation. Illegal. Consuela stood. I reviewed it. Taxwuprupe. Sheriff served it. She has a court date. Brenda choked out. You planned this. I answered quietly. I responded to your actions. You wanted to play eviction games with fake notices. So I showed you what a real one looks like. She grabbed her purse. Chair toppled. Heels clattered across the linoleum. Door slammed. Patricia announced results. Dell for president, 71 votes. Brenda, 8. Iris treasurer, 68. Marcus secretary, 64. Applause thundered. Dell raised the gavel. First order. Rescind all violation notices from the past 12 months and refund fines paid. Unanimous. Second. Hire independent auditor. Report in 60 days. Unanimous. Brenda moved out by mid-February, avoiding the hearing. Left the place trashed. Drywall holes, stained carpet, broken appliances. I kept the deposit and billed $2,800 in damages. Never collected. Didn't matter. The audit confirmed $77,000 misappropriated. Police report filed. DA declined criminal prosecution. Low priority white collar. Civil suit against Brenda and Kenneth settled. He repaid $40,000 from his company assets. Brenda declared bankruptcy, paid nothing, vanished. Last heard somewhere in Florida. Pinehurst Meadows healed. Dues dropped 15%. Enforcement overhauled. Photos required. 30-day cures. Real appeals. We painted the clubhouse, mulched beds, planted pollinator gardens. Kids played on hoops that were no longer violations. We created a community fund with scholarship and repair assistance. First recipient, daughter of one of my tenants, full ride to UNC Charlotte Engineering. A year later, I hosted an open house, chili simmering, gingerbread baking, 30-plus neighbors, kids underfoot, classic rock low. Dell raised his beer. To Garrett for having the guts to say enough. I raised mine back. To all of us. We took our neighborhood back and made it better. The fight was never about trucks or grass height. It was about dignity, about living in peace without petty tyrants turning rules into weapons. We won. If you're facing your own HOA nightmare, document everything. Know your state laws, find allies, use public records, stay calm and relentless. It's not revenge. It's justice. Now I want to hear from you. Drop your craziest HOA story below. What's the most ridiculous fine you ever got? If you're in the middle of a fight, tell me. Maybe we feature it next. Hit subscribe. Ring the bell. We cover HOA battles, landlord wins, small claims victories. The stories only get wilder. Until next time, know your rights, stand your ground, and never let the Karens win. Peace.